Greetings, YouTubers. It is story time once again. I do have another kind of tales from the crypt to tell you about from my time living in Ireland. It's storming out, so if you hear thunder and lightning, it's actually storming out. We have much needed rain. Thank you, God and the universe, for the rain. I will not complain. We need it. We were under a drought warning, so it's very good to have the rain and the storm. It is most welcome, and we must remember that Jesus calms storms. Amen. Anyway, I was living in the village of Knock in Ireland for a few years, and I had a very, very odd landlord. I rented a cute little house at a cul-de-sac. It was like at a corner house, and it was a very nice, cute little house, and it was perfect for my son and I. And so the landlord and his wife seemed very nice at first, but the landlord was a very unhappy person. I don't know if he had a hard life or what his story was, but he was a very unhappy person. So I always, when I paid my rent, I always made sure that I got receipts for the rent. That was very important, and I saved a record of the receipts. I always made sure I do that. By the way, this is my book of shadows. I love my book of shadows. Anyway, but this is a tale from the crypt. It's just really weird. So we had a dog. I got permission to have a dog from the landlord, so we had a dog. But this landlord used to come. I had cameras everywhere, so this landlord used to come and put chocolate in our yard and bones in our yard. I would find them in the yard and pick them up so that my dog, because chocolate, for those of you that don't know, if you're not a dog owner or dog lover, chocolate's not good for dogs. You don't give chocolate to dogs, and you never abuse animals. I also hate animal abuse. I hate abortion. I hate child abuse. I hate contraception, and I hate animal abuse. Just so you know, a little bit about me. There you go. Anyway, he would do that, which was not nice. I would just, because I was renting there, I didn't make a big deal about it. I just picked the items up so the dog wouldn't get sick or there would be no harm that would come to the dog. He wasn't a nice person. I think he was a bit of a sociopath, maybe a psychopath, but there was something not right about him. He was awful. He was very aggressive too. So he would threaten me and tell me that he was going to make me homeless, which by the grace of God, I didn't become homeless. I always made sure I paid the rent on time and kept the house nice. But he badmouthed me around the whole village of Knox. So in that village, people didn't know me, but they just didn't think very much of me. I don't know what he was saying, but he was badmouthing me to the people in the village of Knock. So there's a couple of little short stories within this story, but one of the stories I'm going to share is my dog had done a little bit of damage to the linoleum on the floor in the house. So I felt bad about that. So I got permission from the landlord to make it right. So he started complaining about the dog. The landlord was not happy about the dog. And when he would come to get the rent, he would purposely let the dog out without permission or whatever. He was just very rude, very not a nice person. And so I got permission to fix the linoleum and I paid for that. So a father-son came and fixed it one time. But then another time a subcontractor came. He was an older man. And he wouldn't stop flirting with me. He was butt fucking ugly. He was just dastardly looking. Like just butt fucking ugly. No other way to say it. But anyway, he kept flirting with me. And he had a blade. He had a blade in his hand. And he threatened to rape me. So I stayed very calm. And I am very psychic. You know, I can read people. And if somebody's threatening me, I do read them like a book. I don't need permission. I read people if I need to read them. I really don't care. Because if it keeps me safe, it keeps me safe. So anyway, so I told him, I said, I'm sorry that you were raped as a boy. But that does not give you the right to rape other people. And I said, if you take another step or lunge forward or move with that blade, I'll shove that blade down your throat. It would be worth the jail time. I also further stated that he will finish the job he came to do. I will say that he did a good job, but he will stop flirting because I'm sick and tired of it. And he'll just finish the work. Well, he finished the work. He left. I called the place that sent him. And I said, you're dirty. You're dirty. You sent somebody that I don't like, and I don't want him back. And they asked, why don't you want him back? And I said, because he talks too much. I didn't say anything about the incident that happened because Ireland is a very twisted place. It can be a very beautiful place and a wonderful place to visit, absolutely. And I've met some very nice, wonderful people in Ireland, I have to say that. I really enjoyed my time in Dublin. People were wonderful there. But in the village of Knock, people were just weird. Weird is the word. Is that even a word? Just weirdos. But anyway, but in Dublin we had a really nice time. Yeah, and I've met some really nice people in Ireland, but it can be a crappy place to be too. So just so you know, but yeah, that's a true story. That guy, so they didn't send him back, but I didn't tell them what happened because in Ireland, they'll say, oh, you asked for it. Oh, you were looking for it. Or, they're just really creepy in Ireland. So I didn't play the victim. I just said, because they'll victimize you all over again over there. It happens in America too, especially in courts of law. If you have a case where there was abuse, they victimize you all over again in courts of law. It's horrible. And I have another story. Let's see. Will that come to me? What is the other story? Well, that's one story. Oh, yeah, this is another story. So I used to need taxi. I used to, I drove for a year on my USA license. But then once my actually, my USA license didn't expire, but you can only drive for a year on your USA license. Then you have to get your EU license. And getting an EU license is much more difficult. So I sold the car. I didn't bother getting the EU license. And so then I walked everywhere, took the bus. And so, where am I going with this? See if I can remember now the other story. Oh, yes. I needed to get my laundry done. So I'll talk about the taxi after the laundry story, but let me get the laundry story out. So I had a washer dryer, but I sold a lot of my stuff because, it was my stuff that I owned. And that landlord was very crooked. I bought the washer dryer from the store that he worked at the time. I bought it there and he gave me a handwritten receipt, which I saved, but he didn't give me an actual receipt. So I had to reach out to the store and get an actual printed receipt, which they did do because the landlord was trying to claim that the washer dryer was his. So anyway, I got a little bit of revenge on the landlord. I emailed him saying he could keep everything that I got and he could keep the oil. I didn't let him keep anything. I sold everything that was mine. So I didn't do anything to anything that was his, but everything that was mine I sold. So I sold the oil because that was mine to sell, and I sold the washer dryer. So there was a time I needed to get laundry done, and there was a laundromat. Like I say, it's very impressive what's all in the village of Knock. There's a doctor's office there, there's a laundromat there, there's a lot of things there. So I could walk to the laundromat and get my laundry done. But the lady gave me a dirty look and she didn't want to do my laundry. So I gave her a smile and I said, she just gave me a dirty look, like she just didn't want anything to do with me. And I smiled and I said, I was warned not to come here. I understand reverse psychology and this wasn't true at all. But I just told her this. I said, I was warned, I was told about you. I was warned not to come here to get my laundry done. And I said, it's perfectly fine. I could go to Claremorris, the neighbouring village, and get my laundry done. It's up to you. I mean, it's really your call, but I thought I'd give you a chance and decide for myself whether or not you'd want to do my laundry. Do you know she did a 180 and did my laundry for me, and she even drove it to the house. It was very nice. She was a nice person, but I had been bad-mouthed. My landlord was very narcissistic in a very unhealthy way, and I had been bad-mouthed. He had attacked my character. So, as we say in my book of shadows, whatever he has coming to him, he has coming to him. That's an Irish saying, because he shouldn't have pulled that crap. That wasn't nice. Anyway, that's the story there. But the taxi story is funny too. Some of the local taxis, when I would call from my phone, they would say, well, we don't serve you because you're a local. Well, I wasn't a local. I was only there for a short time. So I'd go to one of the local stores and ask to use the phone. And they were very nice about that, very hospitable, because Ireland's supposed to be hospitable. But they're not very hospitable if you're from Ireland and you return to Ireland for a while. Then they're not so hospitable. They don't want to be hospitable. So I'd call from the store and say, or the store person would call and say, we need a taxi from here to there. The taxi would pull up and they'd say, oh, it's you. And I'd smile and I'd say, yes, I'm a tourist now. I'm not a local. And that's how I got my taxi rides. I had to be clever to do it because they didn't want to help you if you were local. It was very weird in Knock. It was a very odd situation. But that landlord was dangerous. He wasn't a safe person. But I made sure I paid my rent on time and did what I needed to do. And I did the right thing and, got the house nice and clean before I left. So everything was done the right way, The only thing I did that I didn't realize until after, because I changed the locks for safety for my safety so that he wouldn't be able to come into the house unannounced. So I had the locks changed. When I returned the keys, I put them in the mailbox that's on the door. I'm like, oh no, he was locked out of the house. I didn't realize it till afterwards, so I didn't, it wasn't something I did on purpose, but he had to get himself let into the house after that, so that was unfortunate. But anyway, he was a very strange, dangerous person, not a safe person. But those are some of my tales from the crypt from Ireland. Thank you for listening.